I want to talk about Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day, which is about this loyal head butler Stevens, who works at this English estate, Darlington Hall, during the interwar period. Now, I like this book for a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones is Ishiguro does a great job at showing what working in the service industry does to a person's psyche. No part more so than the section that describes the death of Stevens' father. So, in his own day, Stevens' father was a great butler in his own right, but now in his old age, he is working at Darlington Hall under Stevens. All's going well enough until one day his father is carrying this tray laden with tea and cakes and sandwiches across the lawn, and he has a nasty spill in front of all of the gentry. So then Stevens has to go to his father's room and have this stilted conversation with him. He says, "His lordship is of the view, as indeed I am myself, that while father is allowed to continue with his present round of duties," he refers to his father in the third person like this, "father also represents an ever-present threat to the smooth running of this household, and in particular to next week's important international gathering. Lord Darlington is planning this conference of European delegates." My father's face, in the half-light, betrayed no emotion whatsoever. I went on. "It has been decided that father should not carry laden trays of any sort for even the shortest distances. In view of these limitations, and knowing father's esteem for conciseness, I have listed here the revised round of duties he will from now on be expected to perform." I felt disinclined actually to hand my father the piece of paper I was holding, and so I put it down on the end of his bed. My father glanced at it, then returned his gaze to me. "I only fell that time because of those steps," he said. "They're crooked. Seamus should be told to put those right before someone else does the same thing." So, Stephen's father, being the resourceful butler that he is, gets around this injunction on carrying by pushing this cart all around Darlington Hall. It says, "My father did, in any case, rapidly discover a way to circumvent the limitations on his effectiveness implied by the stricture that he should carry no laden trays. The sight of his figure pushing a trolley loaded with cleaning utensils, mops, brushes, arranged incongruously, though always tidily, around teapots, cups, and saucers, so that it at times resembled a street hawker's barrow, became a familiar one around the house. Obviously, he still could not avoid relinquishing his waiting duties in the dining room, but otherwise the trolley enabled him to accomplish a surprising amount. So, this is going well enough. The international conference starts. Stephen is really busy when a first footman had come hurrying down the staircase in some distress to inform me that my father had been taken ill upstairs. I hurried up to the first floor, and on turning at the landing was met by a strange sight. At the far end of the corridor, my father had dropped down onto one knee, and with head bowed seemed to be pushing at the trolley before him, which for some reason had taken on an obstinate immobility. Two chambermaids were standing at a respectful distance, watching his efforts in some awe. I went to my father, and releasing his hands from their grip on the edge of the trolley, eased him down on the carpet. His eyes were closed, his face was an ashen color, and there were beads of sweat on his forehead. Further assistance was called, a bath chair arrived in due course, and my father was transported up to his room. So now Stevens has to manage this conference while his father is severely ill, essentially on the brink of death. It says, "In the meantime, my father's condition had grown neither better nor worse. As I understood, he was asleep for much of the time, and indeed I found him so on the few occasions I had a spare moment to ascend to that little attic room. I did not then have a chance actually to converse with him until the second evening after the return of his illness. My father opened his eyes, turned his head a little on the pillow, and looked at me. 'I hope father is feeling better now,' I said. He went on gazing at me for a moment, then asked, 'Everything in hand downstairs?' 'The situation is rather volatile,' I said. 'It is just after 6 o'clock, so father can well imagine the atmosphere in the kitchen at this moment.' An impatient look crossed my father's face. 'But is everything in hand?' he said again. 'Yes, I dare say you can rest assured on that. I'm very glad father is feeling better.' With some deliberation, he withdrew his arms from under the bedcloths and gazed tiredly at the back of his hands. He continued to do this for some time. 'I'm glad father is feeling so much better,' I said again eventually. Now really, I'd best be getting back. As I say, the situation is rather volatile. He went on looking at his hands for a moment, then said slowly, I hope I've been a good father for you. I laughed a little and said, I'm so glad you're feeling better now. I'm proud of you, he said. A good son. I hope I've been a good father to you. I suppose I haven't. I'm afraid we're extremely busy now, I said, but we can talk again in the morning. My father was still looking at his hands as though he were faintly irritated by them. I'm so glad you're feeling better now, I said again, and took my leave. So imagine having this conversation with your father and then going immediately back to work. Stevens is downstairs, he's serving, he's holding it all together, when I felt something touch my elbow and turned to find Lord Darlington himself. Stevens, are you all right? He asked. Yes, sir, perfectly, I said. You look as though you're crying, he said. I laughed and taking out a handkerchief, quickly wiped my face. I'm very sorry, sir. The strains of a hard day. So this finally concludes when Miss Kenton, Stevens' second in command, comes up to him while Stevens is in the midst of doing a million things and says, Mr. Stevens, I'm very sorry. Your father passed away about 4 minutes ago. I see, I said. Will you come up and see him? She said. I'm very busy just now, Miss Kenton. In a little while, perhaps. In that case, Mr. Stevens, will you permit me to close his eyes? I would be most grateful if you would, Miss Kenton. She began to climb the staircase, but I stopped her, saying, Miss Kenton, please don't think me unduly improper in not ascending to see my father in his deceased condition just at this moment. You see, I know my father would have wished me to carry on just now. Of course, Mr. Stevens. To do otherwise, I feel, would let him down. Of course, Mr. Stevens.